and imagine. Chapter 7. Bill Gates. In 2014, an employee of Bill Gates, an engineer named Rick Allen Jones, was arrested at a mansion owned by Gates in Medina, Washington. He was wanted for possession of more than 6,000 images depicting extreme sexual child abuse. After not being able to locate Jones at his residence, he was later located at his place of work, Gates' waterfront mansion in Washington. This man seemed to be given a very light sentence for such a horrific crime, only 90 days in county jail. Why do I bring this up? Because we now know that Bill Gates was also in another relationship at this time with a man named Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein is now deceased as of August 2019 after allegedly killing himself in his jail cell where he was being held on suicide watch, and also the cameras that were supposed to be watching his every move just happened to stop working during this suicide, and also the guards who were supposed to be watching him fell asleep after searching Amazon for upcoming purchases during work. So who was Jeffrey Epstein? Epstein was a convicted sex offender and former financier who was born in Brooklyn, New York. In 2005, Epstein came to the attention of law enforcement in Florida when he was accused of sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl. Epstein was later charged and after a controversial plea deal was sentenced to only 13 months in prison. He spent much of this on work release and basically showed up to jail to sleep. Even though police had identified 36 victims of Epstein with some as young as 14. Epstein's short sentence was later said to be because of statements made to Alexander Acosta, then the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida, that Epstein was intelligence and to leave it alone. Epstein was an extremely rich and powerful man with many influential contacts including Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, Donald Trump, and many others. It was later found in 2006 by officers in Palm Beach, Florida, that Epstein had hidden cameras in rooms at his house. Maria Farmer, an artist who worked for Epstein in 2006, noted that Epstein showed her a media room in his New York mansion where there were people monitoring the pinhole cameras throughout the house. The media room was accessed through a hidden door. She stated that in the media room, there were men sitting here. And I looked at the cameras and I saw toilet, bed, toilet, bed. She added that it was very obvious that they were like monitoring private moments. Epstein allegedly lent girls to powerful people to gain favor over them and also to gain potential blackmail information. I could go on all day about Epstein and all of his absurdly powerful connections from famous politicians and models, but what's lesser known is that Epstein had major power over certain schools and universities, especially regarding the medical community. To say Epstein was a powerful monster of a human being is an understatement. So the question then is, why would Bill Gates befriend Epstein knowing that he was already a convicted child sexual predator who was also involved in compromising high-ranking individuals? He is on record in publicly available information meeting with Epstein a minimum of 6 times, but that's just what we know. He was a passenger on Epstein's private plane, although Gates owns his own $40 million private plane. Gates has been questioned about this on television multiple times. Likely to try to clean up his image, he requested the question be asked so he could spin it, and tried to claim he regrets the relationship, but it was all about philanthropy. Which is a ridiculous answer, of course. Gates is a multi-billionaire who could find all sorts of ways to raise money for charity. The fact he would turn to a prolific child predator for this reason is laughable at best, and it's the exact answer one would expect from a narcissistic psychopath, which former employees of Gates have described him as. In another TV interview about his relationship with Epstein, after Epstein's death, Gates was asked during this interview on PBS, it was reported that you continued to meet with him, Epstein, over several years. In other words, a number of meetings. What did you do when you found out about his background? Gates then replies, well, I've said I regret having those dinners. There's nothing new on that. Then the reporter asks, is there a lesson for you? For anyone else looking at this? And to this Gates replies while snickering and smiling, well, he's dead. So in general, you always have to be careful. And you know that I'm very proud of the work we have done in philanthropy. Very proud of the work we have done in the foundation. That's what I get up every day and focus on. We know that Epstein was investing in schools like Harvard and others on record. He even had an office at Harvard. He was invested in the medical community and had a great interest in it. As we see now with the COVID-19 pandemic, to have power over the medical community is extremely important if you have an agenda, because if you can have head members of the medical community walking together in lockstep towards one plan, you can basically take control of large components of society, including as far-reaching as determining when people can even leave their house and what medications they must be forced to take in order to maintain their jobs. Although Gates claims this relationship was for philanthropy, which is laughable, the most likely scenario is that Gates was either being compromised by Epstein or that Gates was interested in the medical community members that Epstein had compromised and was looking to gain power and information for future plans where he could find weak links to be used for his benefit in the future. Another potential reason for their relationship could have been Epstein's interest in young girls and his ability to arrange young girls for other rich and powerful people. Gates is involved in many far-reaching and potentially dangerous operations, from nearly completing his plan to partially block out the sun in 2021 to slow global warming, which was canceled in the last minutes before the operation went live due to safety concerns, to his massive investments in American farmland, where he is now the largest private owner of farmland in the USA with a whopping 269,000 acres across dozens of states. It goes without saying that Gates will have major control over the future of food production in North America and the world. Why don't you hear about this in the news? And why is Gates always portrayed as the good guy who is doing all of this to help out society? Because again, we have to remember that Gates' funding of the news media is a monumental attack on our press, with literally hundreds of millions spread out to mostly all of the major news outlets from CNN to NPR or the BBC. Gates has his tentacles in almost every sector of the media and news. So if a company decides to run a story about some of his strange friends or actions, like as an example his friendship with prolific pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, they can surely expect to lose future funding, so you can understand why these companies will not bite the hand that feeds them. The media will write stories to cover for Gates, such as conspiracy theorists say Bill Gates is trying to add microchips to the vaccines to mind control people. This is a form of gaslighting directed at people who are gullible and have not studied any deeper into the subject. What they do is they basically make it so the reader is already suspicious of anyone who tries to make them aware that something more nefarious is at work. The Gates Foundation has faced backlash in countries such as India, Telangana's Khammam, where in 2009 they reportedly tested an HPV vaccine on illiterate participants, which had negative consequences on the victims, including of the 14,000 tested on, 4 died and many others fell ill. Another interesting fact is that Bill Gates appears to have psychic abilities. As we know, in October 2019 his organization put on Event 201, which predicted the then just months away outbreak of a coronavirus that would change the world. And also in late 2021, Gates spoke about a potential terror attack where smallpox were leaked at airports by terrorists, and just weeks later vials that were labeled smallpox, that later were said to not contain any smallpox, were found in a freezer in a lab in Pennsylvania. The reason why this is an odd coincidence is because just a couple months later, in early 2022, a truck carrying laboratory test monkeys crashed, also in Pennsylvania. And a woman who approached the crash site came into contact with a monkey and was said to experience symptoms including cough and pink eye. Bill Gates said he wanted a $1 billion donation to a group he would be in charge of so they could run what he called germ games to find weaknesses on the public health system for dealing with outbreaks. So why is this important? Well, it just so happens now in 2022 we have an outbreak of monkeypox. So now you can see why Bill Gates is being mentioned as a key figure in regards to what is transpiring in the world today. And let's not forget Bill Gates and his wife were interviewed on a television program laughing, as Bill said in late 2020. The next one, pandemic, will get people's attention in a gleeful manner, as he and his wife, who divorced him not long after, chuckled with smiles on their faces.